Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We're going to that horrible world known as the JRC, but before we do the usual disclaimers, and I'm going to show off this shirt. I got this a few years ago when I was a little bit bigger. Fits like a glove now, but I'm going to show you why I love it, because if you take the hair back here, it says, "You had me at Kitty Shenanigans." I love this shirt. I do love this shirt. All right, we're going to be switching gears as you see here, as we're about to go through another. Blah. I can't think, folks. Getting ready to go through another article here. This one by Shane Neumeyer. An autistic lawyer. Tell me we can't be successful again. Sorry, not sorry. But before we do the disclaimers, we're just going to shoot through them real quick. In the description box, you're going to find a link to the article that the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read. It's written by NeuroClastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics, wherein they interviewed and surveyed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. Matter of fact, the JRC doesn't want you to read this article so much. They've threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. Well, folks, NeuroClastic has refused, so you know the drill. Please read the article and share it on all your social media. Also included in there is NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding just in case the JRC actually sees through with their threat. Also included in there, the Ozark's first article in regards to Agape Boarding School, now known as Stone for Help boarding school situation, a so-called Christian-themed boarding school based out of Stockton, Missouri that takes in so-called troubled male teens, that has impending over 21 civil lawsuits, claims, and allegations leveled against it, all which have been substantiated by the Missouri Department of Social Services. They include the following: sodomy, rape, sexual assault, child abuse, psychological and emotional abuse, child trafficking, starvation, and that's just for starters. You have one former staff member arrested by the FBI, another a doctor, still on the premises with full access to the boys up on multiple, again, substantiated claims of sodomy, rape, and sexual assault of the boys there. You have an attorney general too busy chasing after and doing terribly bad Photoshop of drag queens and trying and failing to defund public libraries to be troubled with doing his job. And you got a governor off his nut. So send help, read that article, share it on all your social media. As always, we got the other pertinent links to the Stop the Shocks campaign as well, including Hoya's massive archive on the subject, Jennifer Masamba's behavioral sheet of shockable offenses, a clip out of the 7-hour ordeal undergone by Andre McCollins back in 2002, the templates, and the ever-present self-explanatory change.org shut the Judge Rotenberg Center down petition. When we discuss the JRC, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of peoples with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, folks, please go ahead and use the headphones, alright? Trigger warning. We have marked this channel not for kids for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously parental supervision is very much advised, alright? Okay, so the use of restraint, seclusion, and aversives in special education settings. Let's get to it and read some sanity, shall we? Be a nice change, won't it? In case you didn't know, Shane Neumeyer, as the good majority of us are, is also a part of the Autism Self-Advocacy Network. Very well known, is considered one of the experts when it comes to the Judge Rotenberg Center. Introduction. Over the last several decades, children with disabilities have increasingly been afforded access to educational opportunities, as well as to the services and supports needed to make this access meaningful. Places like Rivendell, which I'm going to continue to be proud of. In order to accomplish this, the law has guaranteed them the right to a free and appropriate public education, as well as to protection against discrimination in public and private settings. Despite these advances, they still remain subject to forms of discipline which non-disabled children are not. I'm gonna need you to preach. Where's a megaphone when I need it? Because this is not just true with the JRC, it's true throughout and layered throughout ABA. We are, first off, held to standards that neurotypical kids are not held to. You know, I always quote Rob Zombie, gotta be more human than human. We are not just expected to be on level with our neurotypical peers, we are expected to be better than our neurotypical peers. Never curse, dress like we're a bunch of Jehovah's Witnesses. Basically not do anything that any parent would frown upon. But here's the difference. Neurotypical kids are given allowances that we're not given. If we do a behavior that the ABA professional does not approve of, we get to deal with such things such as removal of affection. Parents are told to ignore their screaming children who are suffering horrifically due to sensory issues because we're not behaving appropriately. Okay? Now, if it were a neurotypical who was suffering due to something being too loud, would the ABA consultant say, well, you should just ignore them until they perform like a performing seal the way we told them to? No. Parents will go full ass Karen. Okay? Never go full Karen. We are supposed to dress in a way that most neurotypical kids are not held up to. I've never seen you all come down on a neurotypical male for not dressing every day to school like he's a Jehovah's Witness. Okay? Never seen you come down on a male neurotypical who plays sports because he smells like the inside of a jockstrap. And I'm sorry, you ever been to high school after the footballers come in after football practice? You got a large portion of those guys that don't shower afterwards. I know, I've been in a closed off room with them. Okay? But it's allowed because they're football players, right? But if we do it, say we had to walk all the way to school, you get my point, right? We have to be perfect in a way that neurotypical kids don't have to be. When they have inappropriate behaviors, it gets laughed off. When we have those same behaviors, even if it is common among our peer group, it follows us around, hung over our heads like the sword of Damocles, and addressed every single doctor appointment for the rest of our natural lives. Okay? This is the kind of thing he's talking about here. But let's move on, okay? Aversive or punitive behavioral intervention, Aversives, restraint and seclusion are used in private, public, special educational settings in ways that would likely never be contemplated for use on children in a regular education, both as an emergency measures and behavioral modification as a part of education or treatment. I'm going to go back to the football players here, because some of the most notorious bullies in my school were the athletes. They got away with murder. Okay? They get aggressive and start fist fights in the halls. Think they were hauled off to an isolation room and kept there for 7 hours? Same fist fight. Did they have a group of staff suddenly come out of nowhere, grab them, and hold them to the ground for an undetermined amount of time until they calmed down? And in the process, somehow there was bruising and a broken bone? No. Because you know what would happen if that happened, right? Lawsuits. Enough lawsuits to basically sue the school out of existence. But it's considered okay for us. Right? We're just saying is all. Despite the intrusive and risky nature of these procedures and the extent to which they are used, their use has gone unheard of by the public and unaddressed by the law to a large extent. Say it again. Where is a megaphone when I need one? You don't hear about it. And the few times that you do, it's always justified. You'll hear a teacher scoff about the need to restrain a raging footballer getting in a fist fight with another footballer. Right? Boys will be boys. But in a situation where you have an autistic being very maliciously bullied, especially the boys, pushed around and physically assaulted, and then one day that autistic gets pissed because you can only punch so many times in the face before eventually we're gonna react. And we have that wonderful thing called meltdown adrenaline coming behind us. And I don't want to talk to you about how much strength that can have coming through our veins. And we defend ourselves. Remember, punch a bully in the face? Yeah, we don't get to do that. And what happens, folks? We get attacked. Restrained on the ground. Full-grown adults on a teenage kid. 3 to 4. I've even seen 6. Held to the ground like we are a criminal being restrained due to being violent while on PCP. Okay? Let's talk about the restraints for a minute. The restraint rooms, right? On paper, it sounds benign. But teachers will use these restraint rooms for the most bizarre reasons. She made an inappropriate noise and it was annoying the other students, so I threw her in the room. Karen, blonde Kathy over there, has been talking about the 5 guys she blew during the last party out loud while you were trying to teach. I make one little click noise, and I get my ass thrown into a seclusion room till I calm down for 7 hours. No bathroom breaks. No chance to get to any of my other classes for the day. And many times, folks, the kids get forgotten about and left in those rooms. And you get the worried parents who have to come to the classroom and figure out what the hell has happened to their kid. I'm not joking. This is not a rare occurrence. It happens a lot. Remember, JD's community is not the only one I'm a part of. It's not even the largest one I'm a part of. Okay? I get to hear these stories. I get to see the reports. Remember when I tell you when it comes to us, our receipts have receipts? Yeah, our receipts have receipts. This is what Shane is talking about here. even if it's not as insane as what the JRC gets up to, there is a massive double standard that is applied to us disabled kids. I'm just talking about the autistics here. I'm not talking about what kids with other disabilities are facing in the hell that is public schools and what public schools get away with them. Okay? This is just drawing from personal experience and what I know from our own community. Yeah. There's a massive elephant in the room. It's an elephant that not even politicians are ever happy to discuss. That is this massive double standard, the insane expectations that is forced upon the disabled kids, that is not forced on our neurotypical peers. And when we do not meet those more human than human standards, the way we are punished for it. Meanwhile, our neurotypical peers, when engaging in very similar behaviors, get such adages as teachers laughing it up. Boys will be boys, right? Girls will be girls. And we don't see a problem here. I'm terrible acting. I'm trying to blink a lot. You get my point, right? You get my point? Part of the reason why places like the JRC exist in the first place is because of this double standard. It's a very bizarre dichotomy. Because on one hand, we're viewed as subhuman and treated as such. But on the other hand, they expect us to be, as I call it, more human than human. We're not even allowed to engage in some of the same behaviors that are written off in regards to neurotypical kids without having stuff like this occurring. There's a massive problem here. And until more than just my community begins talking about it, it's never going to change. And you're going to have a whole nother generation of traumatized, disabled kids. Because you have a bunch of adults who are supposed to be over us continuing to engage in these unfair double standards. Making an already vulnerable, targeted population that much more vulnerable and that more susceptible to being targeted. We're going to close on that. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit that like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time. As always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. Bye-bye, everyone.